Let's be honest, no one enjoys being pulled over. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and even if you've done nothing wrong, your rights suddenly feel uncertain. Most drivers don't realize traffic stops are full of legal gray areas, and police rarely explain them. Every day, people give up those rights without knowing it. In this video, we'll break down 25 real tactics officers legally use to escalate stops, search cars, and issue citations. These aren't myths, they're grounded in law. Buckle up. It's time to learn what you were never told. You don't have to consent to a search. This is the foundation of your rights during a stop. Unless the officer has a warrant, sees something illegal in plain sight, or has clear probable cause, you're absolutely allowed to say no. Many people confuse politeness with compliance, especially when an officer asks something like, "Mind if I take a quick look inside?" That sounds casual, but it's a legal probe. Once you say yes, even if pressured, that consent allows them to go through your car. And here's what's key. If they truly had the legal right to search, they wouldn't ask. Stay calm, polite, and simply say, "I do not consent to a search." Following from that, you also don't have to roll your window all the way down. This one often catches drivers off guard. When an officer approaches, they might ask you to roll it down for safety, or so we can talk clearly. But unless specifically ordered, there's no legal requirement to lower it beyond what's needed to communicate and pass over your documents. A 2-inch opening is generally enough in many states. That small barrier maintains a boundary and makes it harder for the officer to claim plain sight evidence later. And again, being firm isn't being aggressive. You're simply exercising your right to stay in control. Equally important, you are not obligated to answer unrelated questions. This is where officers get subtle. After collecting your license and registration, they often shift to casual chatter. "Where are you headed tonight?" Or, "How long were you at that bar?" While it may feel impolite to stay quiet, legally, you're not required to say a word beyond what's necessary for the stop. This tactic is known as a pretext for deeper inquiry. The more you talk, the more data they collect, even if none of it relates to your driving. A courteous reply like, "I prefer not to answer," is completely lawful and often wise. Moreover, you should know that field sobriety tests are voluntary in many states. When alcohol is suspected, officers might ask you to walk a line, follow a pen with your eyes, or balance on one leg. Most drivers assume they have to comply, but in many jurisdictions, these tests are optional. What they don't tell you is that they're designed to fail. Factors like anxiety, fatigue, medical issues, or even uneven pavement can make a sober person stumble. Unless it's a chemical test governed by implied consent laws, you can politely decline. Doing so may prevent you from being misjudged and wrongfully arrested on the spot. Building on that, there's another legal safeguard that's often overlooked. Police can't prolong a traffic stop just to wait for a K-9 unit. This was made clear in a 2015 Supreme Court ruling, Rodriguez versus United States. If the reason for the stop is resolved, say your taillight was out and you've received a warning, then extending that stop for a drug-sniffing dog without new probable cause is unconstitutional. Still, many officers stretch time by stalling, chatting, or pretending to run more checks. The clock matters. If you're told you're free to go, calmly leave. If not, ask clearly, "Am I being detained or am I free to go?" In a related way, what many drivers don't realize is that ticket quotas, while officially denied, still influence many departments. Police departments in several states publicly state that quotas are illegal. But internally, officers often face pressure to issue a certain number of citations per shift or per month. It's framed as a performance metric or activity level, but the result is the same: more stops, more tickets, and more revenue. This pressure peaks near the end of the month, when officers may ramp up enforcement to meet internal expectations. So even minor infractions, like a few miles over the limit, can suddenly turn into costly encounters. Just as concerning, some of those stops may be based on intentionally vague or borderline reasons. You might hear, "Your license plate light looked dim," or "You drifted in your lane back there." These aren't always lies. but they are easy to cite reasons that can be difficult to contest. It's called a pretextual stop, where the real goal is to create a window for further investigation, not to address the alleged issue itself. Once the stop begins, the officer looks for cues, nervousness, smell, behavior to expand the encounter. Staying calm and asking direct questions like, "Was I pulled over for a moving violation?" puts things back into clear legal territory. And even more quietly, some of those stops may come from officers driving completely unmarked vehicles. This can be especially intimidating because many drivers aren't sure how to react. If an unmarked car signals you to pull over, especially at night, it's reasonable to protect yourself. Slow down, turn on your hazards, and drive to a well-lit public area. You can also call emergency services and confirm if a real officer is trying to stop you. You're allowed to ask for identification, and in many places, you can request that a marked unit respond. Protecting yourself doesn't mean disobeying. It means staying safe within your rights. Now shifting focus to what draws unnecessary attention to your vehicle, let's talk about window tints. While dark tints might seem harmless or even legal in your state, they're one of the most common reasons officers initiate a stop. Laws on permissible tint levels vary significantly from one state to another, and many drivers cross state lines without realizing their windows are suddenly too dark. Even if the tint meets regulations, an officer might still stop you under the claim of needing to check compliance. That gives them an entry point to start asking questions or peering inside. So while tints are technically legal in many cases, they still make you a target. In the same vein, license plate covers, especially the clear or anti-camera types, can raise red flags instantly. You may think a transparent shield is harmless, but in several jurisdictions, any cover that distorts or reflects light, even slightly, can result in a fine. Police officers are trained to spot these on site, especially those used to block red light or speed cameras. And just like with tints, once you're pulled over for a plate cover violation, the door opens to further questioning and potential search justification. It's a textbook example of how a minor aesthetic choice can escalate into a full roadside inspection. Alongside these, there's also the issue of aftermarket lighting, especially underglow or colored headlamps. Drivers often install LED strips, neon glow kits, or colored bulbs without realizing they're illegal in many states. Blue or red lighting, in particular, is often restricted to emergency vehicles, and any resemblance to those can justify a stop on safety grounds. Even flashing white lights can trigger an officer's attention. Whether you're going for a custom look or just upgraded bulbs, know your state's lighting laws. Because once you're stopped for vehicle impersonation, the scrutiny doesn't stop with your headlights. Similarly, loud exhaust systems are another common reason your car might be singled out. Performance exhausts and muffler deletes might sound impressive on the road, but they often exceed local noise ordinances, especially in cities with strict decibel thresholds. Some states, like California, have started enforcing noise violations with actual sound meters, and a loud engine alone can warrant a stop. Once again, this kind of stop is rarely just about the volume. It becomes a chance for the officer to inspect your car's compliance, run your license, or simply start a broader conversation. And when a conversation starts, so does legal vulnerability. Moving from visual modifications to digital surveillance, it's important to know that license plate readers track more than just stolen cars. These devices, mounted on patrol cars or street poles, automatically scan and log plate numbers as vehicles pass by. But what most drivers don't realize is how much data they collect: locations, timestamps, even frequency of travel through specific areas. In some states, that data is retained for months or years, even when you haven't broken any laws. Officers can access this history without a warrant, using it to build timelines or link your vehicle to suspicious patterns. You're being tracked far more often than you think. And if that concerns you, consider this. Your vehicle's built-in GPS may also be sharing data without your awareness. Cars equipped with telematic systems like OnStar, Uconnect, or BlueLink can transmit your location, speed, and engine status in real time. Manufacturers can, and often do, provide that data to law enforcement upon request. sometimes without a warrant. This becomes especially relevant in cases involving theft, accidents, or criminal investigations. But even outside of emergencies, the quiet exchange of private driving data is happening behind the scenes. Owning a smart car increasingly means giving up some of your location privacy by default. Equally important, if your car is equipped with a dashcam, police may request or even seize that footage. In the event of a crash, arrest, or stop that escalates, your camera becomes a source of evidence, for you or against you. Officers may ask you to hand over the SD card or attempt to view footage on the spot. While they typically need a warrant to access your private recordings, many drivers hand it over voluntarily without realizing they're under no obligation to do so. If your footage is valuable, secure it immediately and back it up. The more control you maintain, the better your legal footing. Let's not overlook how traffic enforcement itself has gone digital, especially with automated cameras. Red light and speed cameras have become widespread across cities, issuing citations without a single officer present. But these systems aren't flawless. Miscalibrated sensors, poorly timed yellow lights, or incorrect plate readings can result in false fines. What's more, appealing these tickets often places the burden on the driver, not the issuing authority. It's important to review any citation carefully, request evidence if needed, and be aware that in many jurisdictions, you have the right to contest the ticket in court. Just because a machine says you're guilty doesn't mean you are. On a related note, what officers see through your windows can instantly change the nature of a stop. This is known as the plain view doctrine. If anything illegal or suspicious is visible from where the officer stands, be it drug paraphernalia, open containers, or even certain tools, it can be used as legal justification to search the rest of your vehicle. What most drivers don't realize is that plain view extends beyond what's obvious. Even a rolled-up wad of cash or loose prescription bottles can raise suspicion. Keeping your car tidy and clutter-free isn't just about appearance. It could actually prevent escalation during a stop. From there, it's crucial to understand how drug-sniffing dogs are used to validate those searches, often with questionable accuracy. Once a dog alerts your vehicle, that's all the officer needs to initiate a full search, no warrant required. But here's the issue. Many dogs are trained to respond not just to scent, but to subtle cues from their handlers. Studies have shown that false positives are common, and some departments lack rigorous training or oversight. Yet courts often accept the dog's alert as enough. If a K9 unit appears during your stop, know that you're entering a gray legal zone where challenging the basis for the search becomes very difficult. Even more troubling is the fact that your car, or any cash inside, can be seized under civil asset forfeiture laws without you ever being charged. This is one of the most controversial powers in law enforcement. If an officer claims your vehicle or money is connected to suspected criminal activity, they can seize it on the spot. You then must go to court, often at your own expense, to try to get it back. The burden of proof falls on you, not the department. And in many states, police departments are allowed to keep the assets they seize, creating a direct financial incentive. It's a legal process, but one most drivers never see coming until it's too late. Adding to that, officers do have the authority to search your car after an arrest, but only under specific legal limits. The landmark case Arizona versus Gantz set clear boundaries. Unless the arrestee is within reach of the vehicle at the time, or the officer has reason to believe the car contains evidence related to the arrest, a search is not automatically justified. Unfortunately, many officers operate under outdated assumptions, and some will proceed regardless, betting that you won't challenge it later. If you're arrested, make note of the circumstances. A search outside of those conditions may be unlawful, and that could be critical if the case goes to court. With that in mind, it's worth considering how much traffic enforcement is driven not just by safety, but by revenue. In many cities and small towns, fines collected from speeding tickets, equipment violations, and court fees directly support the police department's budget. This creates a built-in financial motive to issue more citations. While officials deny operating on quotas, the data often tells a different story. Spikes in ticketing near fiscal deadlines are common. The more fines written, the more funding secured. So when it feels like minor infractions are being aggressively enforced, you're not imagining it. There's often money behind the motivation. Following the money further, another hidden layer is the profit-sharing relationship between police departments and towing companies. If your vehicle gets towed during a stop, for example due to a suspended license, no insurance, or even a disputed arrest, it's likely heading to a contracted tow yard. These contracts are rarely transparent and often include financial arrangements where departments receive a cut of the fees. That means every impound, every storage day, and every retrieval cost feeds into a system few drivers understand. The quicker you can resolve the situation legally, the less you're likely to lose, not just your car, but your wallet. Even more shocking, officers can justify seizing your cash if it merely smells like drugs, even without any actual substance found. This is tied directly to civil asset forfeiture again, and here's how it works. If a drug-sniffing dog alerts on cash, even if it's clean, you could be accused of transporting drug proceeds. Scientific studies have shown that most circulating cash contains trace amounts of narcotics. Still, the alert can be used as justification to confiscate your money. You won't be arrested, but you'll be told to prove in court that the cash was legally earned. It's legal in many jurisdictions, and it happens more often than most people realize. To stay ahead of all this, it's critical to be prepared before you even hit the road. Start with having a lawyer's contact saved in your phone or wallet. You should also commit a few key phrases to memory, like, "Am I being detained or am I free to go?" And, "I do not consent to any searches." These aren't magic words, they're legal boundaries. Saying them calmly and clearly can de-escalate a tense encounter and protect your rights from being overridden. Being informed isn't about being difficult. It's about keeping the interaction within the law on both sides. And lastly, think carefully about how you present yourself the moment those flashing lights appear behind you. Keep your registration in an easy-to-reach place that's separate from your wallet. Turn off the engine, roll your window slightly, and keep your hands visible on the wheel. These small actions send a clear signal. You're aware, you're respectful, and you're in control of your space. The more organized and composed you are, the fewer excuses there are for escalation. Because at the end of the day, knowing your rights is only half the battle. How you assert them makes all the difference. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.